Is Nigeria set to overhaul investment of its $17 billion pension funds? The government is reviewing key rules, a move that could reshape retirement savings and the wider economy. Good morning and welcome to another power-packed edition of Business Week. In U.S. politics, President Donald Trump declared Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook's dismissal, but Cook hit back, saying Trump has no authority to remove her. Here in Nigeria, the Debt Management Office raised 136.16 billion naira from the August 2025 FGN bond auction, while the federal government launched a new portal to help Nigerians report housing estate fraud. And on the global stage, the IMF says it will take weeks before its board deliberates on Senegal's debt misreporting case. If you missed the week's biggest business and economic stories, don't worry, we have got you covered. I'm Abby Olawu. Let's begin with a look at how the markets performed this week. Starting with a week-on-week commodities performance as at Friday, the 29th of August 2025. Oil prices fell on Friday, but were set for a weekly gain, tugged between uncertainty about Russian supply and expectations of lower demand as the summer driving season in the United States, the world's biggest fuel consumer, nears its close. Brent crude is up by 0.68% on a weekly basis to $68.17 a barrel, while US WTI crude was at $64.08 a barrel, up by 0.71% from last week, Friday, the 22nd of August. A look at the Nigerian Stock Exchange now. At the end of last weekday of trading, a total of 435.14 million shares in 25,609 deals, corresponding to a market value of 10.39 billion naira, were traded. Compared to last Friday's NGX trading day, yesterday's data showed a 1.18% drop in volume and a 66.53% drop in deals. Now, the current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 88.76 trillion naira. Let's now take a look at the weekly performance across African markets. Starting in South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange closing there at 101,835.63, marking a drop of 0.86% week on week. In Ghana, we saw a negative movement with the index dropping on a weekly basis by 0.23% and closing at 7,329.31. In Kenya, the Nairobi Stock Exchange closed upward by 1.51%, with the index ending at 172.6. And finally, Morocco's Mazi closing there at 20,054.88, up by 0.36% on a weekly basis. To European markets now. European stock markets moved lower on Friday as attention turned to EU and US inflation prints, along with investor concerns about the potential for a UK tax raid on banks. The regional stock 600 dropped by 1.97% on a week-on-week basis, with the German DAX index down by 1.85%, from last week Friday. France's CAC 40 index dropped by 3.34%, while the UK's FTSE 100 lost 1.44% there, and we see Spain's IBEX 35 retreating by 2.99% on a weekly basis. Finally, let's take a look at Wall Street as at Friday, August 29th, 2025. With stocks falling on Friday as investors took some money off the table into a long weekend, following a new S&P 500 record and solid Nvidia earnings this week. New inflation data showed rising prices were still on risk heading into the new month. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average trading at 0.64% lower than last week Friday there, while the S&P 500 dropped by 0.29% on a weekly basis, and the Nasdaq Composite retreating there by 0.25% week on week. And now for some other top stories from around the world. U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he will immediately remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook from the central bank's board. He posted a letter on Truth Social accusing Cook of signing deceitful and potentially criminal mortgage documents, citing conflicting statements about her primary residences in Michigan and Georgia. Cook has not commented on the removal, and the Fed has remained silent. But last week, she rejected allegations of mortgage fraud, saying she is gathering accurate information to answer any legitimate questions. Now, Cook, the first African-American woman on the federal board, has served since 2022. In the same vein, U.S. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook says she will sue President Donald Trump after he moved to remove her from office. Her lawyer insists the president has no authority to fire a Fed governor, declaring the action illegal. The Fed, defending its independence, said governors serve fixed terms and can be removed only by court. Now, Cook has in turn vowed not to resign and continue her work, while the legal fight now sets up a rare clash between the White House and America's central bank.
But no, she seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was. Yep. Well, we have some very good people for that position, and I think we have some very good people. We're down to, I think I maybe in my own mind have somebody that I like. But I deal with Scott and I deal with Howard, and we're dealing with a lot of people actually that are going to be involved in that decision ultimately. It's a very important decision. As we see, I got a bad recommendation when I went with Jerome Too Late. It's just, he's too late. His nickname is Too Late.
The U.S. economy grew at a faster than expected pace in the second quarter as consumers and businesses held up against tariff volatility. Gross domestic product rose at 3.3% annualized pace in the April through June period, as reported in the Commerce Department's second estimate for the most encompassing measure of economic activity. Now, the reading was better than initial 3% estimate, as well as the 3.1% Dow Jones consensus forecast. Germany and Canada signed an agreement on Tuesday to boost cooperation in critical raw materials, including rare earths, as Berlin tries to reduce its dependence on China's imports. Now, China's dominance in supplying the world with such materials has been in the spotlight since Beijing this year introduced export curbs on some key rare earths, triggering jitters amongst businesses globally. Germany is hoping to cultivate Canada as an alternative source of rare earths, as well as other materials such as lithium, graphite, cobalt, and nickel.
This agreement reflects our shared recognition that secure, diversified, and sustainable supply chains are the foundation of modern economic strength. For Canada, it means that our responsibly produced critical minerals, lithium, rare earths, nickel, copper, and many more, will serve as reliable inputs for Germany's world-leading industries in advanced manufacturing, clean technologies, and powering the energy transition. This is about positioning both our economies for long-term resilience, ensuring that German manufacturers can count on Canadian suppliers, and that Canadian producers can access global markets and scale their innovation. Together, we're building a partnership that is sustainable, reliable, and rooted in our shared values.
U.S. tariffs of 50% on goods from India took effect on Wednesday as Donald Trump sought to punish Delhi for buying Russian oil and weapons. The tariffs, amongst the highest in the world, include a 25% penalty for transactions with Russia that are a key source of funds for its war in Ukraine. Now, market traders in Delhi voiced concerns over Washington's decision to raise tariffs on Indian goods to 50%, a move they fear will hit businesses and consumers really hard.
India buys oil from Russia. That's why it is being hit with a 50% tariff rate. If they charge 50% tax on our products, then it is natural that when the tax increases, the customer also knows that he can buy what is cheaper. He will not make an offer on the more expensive item. The tariff that has been imposed is completely wrong, and they, America, have not fulfilled their friendship. That is why we will boycott their products, and we will also try to send a message to the whole of India that no product from America should be purchased. We will contact other states. Our other friends are also there. It is not necessary that we only have the USA. We can also do business with other countries when our product is good and the variety is good. Now the problem is that the prices will increase. Even if it is a single commodity, you have to pay 50% tax on it. Earlier there was an option of paying for a bulk of products, which was still fine. Now even if you have to order a single item, then the tax increases so much that it becomes out of reach for the person.
Out of the reach ho jata person.
Now people will start shifting to other places. they will order products from other places. Our jewelry sector and other sectors are very good comparatively. But after the 50% tax is imposed, the prices will increase and people will choose the cheaper options. We have been doing this work for a long time and now there will be a lot of problems.
China Changqing International Credit Ratings Limited has formed African Export-Import Bank's AAA issuer credit rating with a stable outlook. Now, the high rating reflects CCXI's assessment of Afreximbank's strengths, including a sound risk management system, strong profitability, prudent liquidity management, and a very high coverage ratio of current assets on short-term debts. The rating agency further affirmed beliefs that Afreximbank's ratings remain stable over the next 12 to 18 months, in spite of downside credit risks to the macroeconomic and operating environments affecting the bank. The International Monetary Fund says it will be weeks before it can move forward on a waiver for Senegal's $11 billion debt misreporting case. The IMF froze Dakar's $1.9 billion program last year after new leaders uncovered hidden debts, leaving the country in urgent need of waiver to avoid repayment and unlock fresh financing. Head of Mission Edward Gimayel says discussions on corrective measures are ongoing and must be finalized before the case is presented to the IMF Executive Board. Senegal has also told the fund it plans to seek a new lending program, even as Prime Minister Osam Sonko pushes a recovery plan aimed at financing 90% of projects domestically to avoid piling on more debt. Now, Ethiopia has signed a multi-billion-dollar agreement with Nigeria's Dangote Group to build one of the world's largest fertilizer plants. The $2.5 billion facility will be constructed in Ethiopia's southeast region. Dangote Group President Aliko Dangote says the plant will become the second largest urea production site in the world, helping boost food security across Africa. Ethiopian officials hailed the deal as a milestone for the country's agricultural sector, which has long relied on costly fertilizer imports. Now, once completed, the plant is expected to significantly cut Ethiopia's fertilizer import bill, creating jobs and strengthening the wider regional economy. President Bola Tinubu's state visit to Brazil enters its second day after its first round of talks saw Nigeria and Brazil revive energy and trade cooperation. On Monday, President Tinubu was received with full military honors by his host, Luis da Silva. At a joint press conference, Tinubu welcomed the imminent return of Petrobras to Nigeria 5 years after halting operations, saying the move will reignite energy cooperation. Nigeria's oil sector struggled to achieve a stable recovery in crude oil production amidst persistent volatility continued in August. Now, with production at 1.71 million barrels per day in July, Nigeria has slightly surpassed its OPEC quota, marking a significant yet fragile improvement influenced by domestic refining initiatives. The operational capacity of the Dangote refinery, amongst others, allows for greater absorption of domestic production, lessening dependence on crude exports. Now, Nigeria is also set to increase the proportion of funds that its $17 billion pension industry can invest in infrastructure and private equity in a bid to boost returns on retirement savings. The pension regulator is in the final stages of reviewing the limit on savings that pension fund managers can put in infrastructure and private equity from its current 5%. Ibrahim Buwai, was spokesman for the National Pension Commission, disclosed this by phone. Now, while there are currently no details on the new limits being considered, Buwai disclosed that they could be released before the close of this quarter. The Debt Management Office has announced that it successfully raised 136.16 billion naira from the federal government of Nigeria bond auction conducted in August 2025. Now, according to the DMO, the auction featured the 17.945% FGN August 2030 and the 17.95% FGN June 2032 bond, each with an offered size of 100 billion naira. Now, this is according to a circular posted on DMO's website on Tuesday. Now, still in Nigeria, the federal government has launched a digital portal under the oversight of the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development that allows Nigerians to report fraudulent activities in housing estates and track progress of their complaints. Now, the disclosure was contained in a statement released by the ministry on Tuesday, with the portal providing citizens with a safe and user-friendly platform to alert on incidents of fraud in housing estates across the country. Well, that's it for our top stories now.